I hope you guys had a great day. We certainly did. It was a kind of different day, but good.
The last 2 days have been different days.
Mm-hmm.
Really fun. Yesterday, we woke up. Things were just sort of, what was it? We were in our normal routine.
Mm-hmm.
But some days you're just not really feeling it in the same way. Some days, do you know what I mean? Like usually we're kind of thriving on the routine. We go like this segment of the day, that segment of the day. We don't necessarily do the exact same things, but you kind of go to your little corner. I go to my little corner. We kind of do certain things, you know what I mean? And then yesterday it just really wasn't really working for us.
Nope.
And so I had what I think is a pretty good idea.
Pretty genius idea.
Let's go get donuts. And we did. Now, we did. And the wonderful thing about that was we didn't say, well, we hadn't planned on going to go eat donuts. Well, we haven't really thought about this for 24 hours. We just did it. And it was fun.
It was a spontaneous, really super fun thing to do. And
it was. And we went out and we
you know what else we like to do is we like to go to Target and play Mario Kart on like the video game sample. And so we do that a couple of times too.
You don't necessarily want it in your house, you know?
Yeah, but you want to play it every now and then, and so that's what we do, which is super fun.
We're just going to do that until they ask us to leave and not come back.
They haven't done it yet, so we keep doing it.
And then, so we just kind of turned the day over, right? That was the cool thing. We just sort of said, okay, let's just go with this thing. Now, I must confess that very often when I do that, there's trepidation in me. There's a kind of like when are we going to be productive? Or, when are we going to do that stuff that makes me feel like I've done something good, you know? But there was none of that really yesterday. We just went and had fun. A lot of things were unconventional. We came back, and I don't even know, we bopped around and kind of biffed around and just sort of had fun. And then we came home, and I think continued to kind of be unusual in our activity. Spontaneously meditated at like 6:30 at night, from 6:30 to 7:30, which is unusual. It's your dog having a drink. I don't know if you can hear that. But it was wonderful. It was great, you know?
It was so good. And actually it kind of plays into what I want to talk about tonight, which is like the power of expectation, and how we have so many expectations for how the day is supposed to be. And if this doesn't happen or that doesn't happen, we all of a sudden sort of get this like feeling of foreboding, or like I should have done this, I shouldn't have done that. And if you truly just start like letting those shoulds go and letting those like expectations you thought, oh, I thought that this was going to happen, I thought that was going to happen, because we get so married to our idea of how things should be, how life should be, how a day should be, how my body, how everything should be, and that expectation is everything, and that expectation is molding the results that you're getting from whatever area of life you have these expectations about. Because we just had a really great conversation, a couple good conversations in the German New Medicine Self-Healing Support Group. If you're not in that group yet, please join. We have a lot of very fascinating conversations, and one of them was I posted a picture of a question I got on a YouTube video regarding Wi-Fi exposure. You know, so it was on the GNM 101 video, and so the whole premise in German New Medicine is that your changes to your physical tissues are all initiated by psychobiological conflict shocks. And so she's wondering about the physical effects, say, of Wi-Fi, and then that kind of gets into, all the different things like chemtrails and what all these different things that we're exposed to that we kind of have no control over. And I know that I've gone down the rabbit hole of totally freaking...
I didn't realize we went that far. I didn't know that we took that turn in the rabbit hole.
Yeah, right? I freaked out about stuff like that in the past, because it's like, oh my goodness, there's all this crazy, toxic, horrible stuff, and I don't even have any control over it. It could be affecting me right now. It could be affecting me while I sleep. It could be, I could be breathing it in, and it's just, it's doing something to me, and it's like, I don't know exactly what it is, but I've got this weird symptom, maybe it's this, and you start like really going conspiracy theory, about your health and all this other stuff going on, and it can get so out of control. And I mean, I know it's happened for me on a small scale. I'd say that, there were a lot of things that...
Maybe medium scale.
Medium scale. That would really, really freak me out. And the thing is, and we'll get into this, like, okay, whether or not there's any actual objective, like purely objective physical damage to tissue, your expectation, your feeling about it, what you think about whatever it is that you're being exposed to. There's also a conversation in the GNM group about Lyme disease and a tick bite. And so because we all have this concept in our mind that, oh, tick bites are really, really bad, and if you have this bullseye rash, then you may have gotten exposed to this bacteria, and you might have all of these, really terrible, mysterious symptoms. It's that connection, just having that thought, like that just being a thing that people know about, really is so powerful. There's the placebo effect, where like something can have a positive impact on you, like a neutral, sugar pill. I mean, a sugar pill in and of itself does have some impact because it's sugar, but something that you believe to be a treatment for a condition. They did a study actually on knee surgeries. They gave people placebo knee surgeries where people thought they were having a knee surgery, and they improved more than the people who actually had the surgery. Your mind is so powerful that you cannot have a surgery that you thought that you had and have the same results or better than if you actually had the surgery. Same thing goes with different pills. They tested against a placebo that's inert, that's nothing, and people still have amazing results. The same thing can happen. The nocebo effect is if you have negative expectations for something, if you think that when you eat a certain food you're going to get sick, you're going to get sick because your mind is that powerful. And so that's the thing that it plays into every single thing that you engage with, every single food that you eat. There is a mental component. You've got to think about it first, and what you think about it is extremely powerful.
For me, the thing is becoming aware of, so like you were talking about with Wi-Fi or another, sometimes people get kind of phobic about fragrances or smoke or whatever it is, there's the thing itself, there's the stimuli itself, there's this Wi-Fi is affecting me exactly to some degree, right, that I might not be able to know exactly what it is. And it may or may not be causing more or less harm to me. But there's also something else that's going on that I can observe that is very easy to overlook, and that is my pattern of relating to the situation. Like, what is my consciousness doing right now? What are the motions of consciousness that are occurring right now with me? Am I systematic? Because if there's uncertainty, if there's confusion, if there's fear, if there's concern, those are all things that I've created. Now, it doesn't mean that it's wrong to create those things or that I shouldn't have created those things. It just means that if an experience of concern or something like that, that is just what it feels like to focus on, to think about the things that I'm thinking about. The interesting thing to me is that very often we'll worry about something, we'll think what we don't want about something, we'll be very conscious of some potential harm or some potential toxin or whatever, but we won't necessarily do the stuff that we can do to get that stuff out of our environment. We sort of tolerate it, being nearby to us, but we just worry a lot about, oh gosh, I hope that's not really that bad, or oh, I know it's really bad, oh boy, I'm wearing this watch and I hope it's not doing bad things to me. It's like, for me, it's interesting to notice that, to become responsible, to become aware of what I'm thinking about that stuff, because is the watch affecting me? Well, yeah, it might be. And the watch is down here on my arm. But what's going on in here? Because what's going on in here is certainly affecting me, right? It's certainly affecting my body. And it's one of those things from the German New Medicine perspective, if you're ruminating on things that you're worried about, whether it's Wi-Fi, whether it's Lyme disease, whatever it is, that rumination and the experience that comes with it, it's communicating something to your body. Because our body, is kind of a very common sense, very kind of practical, very kind of just like non-metaphorical, very kind of literal thing. And our body has no concept whatsoever about why on earth we would worry about something that wasn't definite and obvious and physical confronting us right here and right now. If we're worried about something that might be harming us, we create an experience of concern or of worry within ourselves, and that experience of worry is a communication to the body. Not that it might be a communication to the body, that the body is hearing that experience and it is responding to that experience. And I think that's just one of the big things for me, was like noticing, I'm very concerned about whether I should be eating this rice. I'm very concerned about whether or not I should allow a computer or Wi-Fi in my house because it might be bad for me. But I tend to be less concerned about whether or not what I am conscious of in this moment in time is very healthy. Because at root, at base, what am I conscious of? Well, I'm conscious of potential threats and dangers, and I'm giving them an inordinate amount of my attention. And I'm making a lot of visual pictures about all the bad things that might happen, and I'm spending a lot of time having kind of like low-level stress or concern or worry about that. And it's so easy to take that for granted because it's going on behind my eyes, and to not say, wait a minute, is that healthy? Is that consistent with kind of creating the sort of results that I want? I mean, and sometimes for me, it's like, I'll think about how I could live my whole life worried about my computer killing me, and then be just fine. You know, my computer's just sitting over here, and maybe it wasn't doing anything really bad to me my whole life, but I could spend all that time being really concerned about that thing, and perhaps even shorten my life through that worry. Maybe push myself up to a threshold with that kind of like low-key worry that something else bad happens, and it just causes me perhaps even to have a conflict or something like that.
Like, education is awesome, but sometimes it really depends for me on like what have I read recently, like what articles have I been reading. I'm just remembering some things that I've totally freaked out about. One was when Steve was in chiropractic school clinic, like you've got to get a certain number of x-ray credits, and so like you've got to take a certain number of x-rays on people, and I had like just read something, and I was like, you know, although I'm a chiropractor and I have taken x-rays on people, and you know, there's all kinds of, you know, ideas about x-rays being fine, hormetic response, or really, really bad. I don't know, whatever I just read, I was just like, I didn't want to have these done, but I kind of like had to do him the favor of like letting him do the x-rays on me. So afterwards, I was like, my thyroid's swollen. We have to go get seaweed because I need iodine. And so I was really being a super neurotic freak. So just so you guys know, this is actually real stuff. And then another time I went to a seminar, and I heard about radon, and how radon, you could just have no idea, and your basement could be poisoned with radon. And like, you know, my dad's bedroom's in the basement, and then I was really freaked out. I was like, Dad, you're gonna, you know, you gotta get the basement tested for radon. And my dad's like a super chill guy, and you know, I could tell him that he's not gonna get freaked out. He just like, okay, you know. But I was so freaked out about it, and I'm making terrible images in my mind. I was even thinking about how that was a tactic that I would use. I mean, I guess a tactic. It was a teaching tool, I thought, to get people to not eat sugar. You know, because I was like, you know, sugar is so bad for you. I want you to start thinking about it like, you know, tiny razor blades in your bloodstream, so that you won't eat it. And if you do, that you feel really bad about it, and that gets you to stop eating sugar. Because I thought I was doing people a favor by getting them really, you know, freaked out and worked up about, you know, not eating sugar because they shouldn't eat it.
That's how you got. I don't know if anyone's gotten on since we said this. We actually went and got donuts
we got donuts yesterday. Cheryl says, you sound like me. Radon, mold, Wi-Fi, spores. I know, like...
It's easy to get caught up in that, but it's because the brain gets really good at thinking in that way. And the thing to me is just like, really, like, pay attention to that, what you're doing. Like, it's so easy to overlook the reality of what we are doing, what our consciousness is doing in a moment in time, and we're so preoccupied with what's healthy and what isn't. Sometimes it's a part of the brain that kind of gets into overdrive. It's you know, the ego, the intellect, the linear scanning thing, the thing that's the part of our brain that is designed to activate when we're out on, you know, we're out on the plains, we're out looking for something to eat, and suddenly there is a danger off in the distance, some kind of big animal that looks hungry, a rival tribe or something like that. There's some threat off in the distance. And the part of us now that gets on the internet and types up things and finds out how, not whether something can kill us, but how specifically it can kill us, that is that same part that gets activated. Do you know what I'm saying? And it activates the old parts of the brain that are like fight or flight, or that kind of ruminating thing. And because it's so easy to kind of become almost like a head in the jar, or a consciousness just sort of on the internet, it's important to remember that we're in a body, and that our body is like, we're an organism, a whole organism. And the parts of our brain that we're using to look up awful stuff on the internet, you know, with you know, good intentions. I mean, I understand, and I mean, I used to do it myself. That part is activating, right, in you, right, sensations of danger or a need to adapt or whatever. That itself is something too. Like there's a cost really to doing that, and so I don't think there's anything wrong with this. It's not so much like what you do; it's how you do it. Are you consistently kind of freaking yourself out about how bad everything is? Or are you just looking for little things like, okay, I can sleep on my laptop right up against my head like this, or I can just put it across the room, or I can turn it off, or I can, you know, turn things off when I'm not using them or whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people who are really enriched by the health measures that they take. There's a lot of people for whom it's like, it's a hobby, it's a productive hobby, it's a conscious living kind of thing for them. And those people, we do that. I would put us in that category most of the time. That I have like a lot of like little health-related rituals that I do. That's a distinct thing from worrying about the stuff, because that was something that I had to take responsibility for. Was that I had a tendency to get really bent out of shape about things that I couldn't do anything about, or that I hadn't done anything about yet. And I also had a tendency to overlook little things that I could easily do something about. You know what I mean? Because the one thing that really was important to me, the one thing that really bothered me, was that thing that because of choices I made or because of the circumstance or whatever that I couldn't do anything about. That was the thing I was going to get really bent out of shape about. And that's a pattern in me. That had nothing to do with my environment. And if you've got that going too, there are better things for you to be thinking about. This is so important, and I think that it's important to not try to take consciousness out of the equation, right? Because there's what you're eating, and then there's what you're thinking about what you're eating, how you're feeling about what you're eating, what your self-concept is, what your ideas are about this thing. And is it different to eat something and just eat it and enjoy yourself and be thinking about things that you want and focused on what you want? Is that different than eating something and telling yourself that you're really bad and not good enough and that this is really awful and self-devaluation, or eating it saying, gosh, this is going to kill me, this is going to kill me, this is going to kill me, this is exactly what my mom died of, this is what is the metabolic effect of those things different? Is the net kind of ecological organismic effect of those different things, are they different? And I think it's really reasonable to suspect that they are different. And so if you're gonna, here's one of my things is like, if there's something that's worth thinking about, it's worth thinking about in a way that feels good to you. Find a way of thinking about this stuff that feels good to you, because that's important. And if you really are concerned with hygiene, that's what was a natural hygiene movement. It's really kind of an interesting thing. Stand on the ground when bare feet. I mean, that's something that I like to do. Oh my God, but what about those worms that crawl up in your feet? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to worry about.
Yeah.
It's taking responsibility, I think, for the way in which we interact with information. Because, I mean, to be honest, like in the Resolve group, what are you learning about in there? Well, you're learning about how basically how your experience matters, and about how your body's responding to what your experience is. So if you're really anxious a lot, or if you're depressed, or if you tend to get very angry or feel threatened or something like that, if I'm coming into contact with that information and I haven't learned an effective strategy for effectively, resourcefully interacting with information in a way that allows me to benefit from it versus be oppressed by it or upset by it, well, I might hear that my emotions matter, think about how I often feel ways that I don't want to feel, and then get freaked out and worried because I'm like, oh my God, now my emotions, now those things are going to make me sick. And if I tend to think in that way, if that's the movement that I make with my consciousness, that's how I focus on that, I'm gonna create an experience as a result of choosing to do that. And if I had access to a better strategy, which is, okay, so this is an interesting perspective, and it's giving me a lot of options now about things. Now that I know about these things, I can do these things differently. I can kind of negotiate with my present reality. I can negotiate with my current habits of thinking and feeling in my environment, my current habits of interacting with other people. I can look at what is true, and I can look at what is ideal according to this information, and I can attempt by degrees to reconcile those things. And won't it feel really good to do that? That's immensely healthy. That's a very kind of empowering thing, and it's a self-efficacy thing. It's the process of optimization. And I think that like sometimes people can mishear what really we're talking about. For some reason, this is I'm doing a breathing exercise. Can mishear what we're talking about, say that you should not try to do healthy things. It has nothing to do with that at all. Those things are really great. Most of them, the thing is to not use everything you come into contact with as an excuse to be freaked out, or as an excuse to be worried, or as an excuse to say, oh, I'm so behind, I haven't done enough, or as an excuse to say, like, look here, we're all living, we're all doing fairly well. I mean, even if you're struggling right now, if you are existing to have a struggle, you're doing phenomenally well. And experiencing the reality of that is really just a matter of paying attention to the things that give rise to that experience. And depending on what your situation is, that might be more or less challenging, but it is always true for everyone. And I think just recognizing that and really taking responsibility in the most positive and empowering sense for how am I relating to my information? How am I relating to things? If it's important to me that I minimize my Wi-Fi exposure, how resourcefully am I interacting with that value? Am I interacting with it in a way that improves what it's like to be me, or am I really making it difficult for me to function in life? Am I going to the same old coffee shop, but I'm also adding in is that it? I kind of feel, you know what I mean? And I think that just paying attention to that and optimizing that is a really useful thing.
Yeah, Cheryl, what you said here, she says, I often wonder why I never got a disease with all my worry. The thing is that's really important to kind of differentiate the kind of ongoing preoccupation, worry with the initiation of a biological special program or a DHS is like the shock component. If ever at one point you actually like truly were surprised, caught off guard, because if you research this stuff a lot and look into it, you almost expect everything to be bad. And what that is there, you can have a negative life experience and have no disease. You can have a negative life experience, you can be worried a lot, you can be, just generally kind of suspicious of things or worried about different whatever, and never have a biological special program initiated. You're just having a bad experience. And so that's where, like the Resolve program, we want to resolve actual conflicts you have going on, but we also want to improve your experience of what it's like to be you. So once you're like out of the woods and you don't have any actual physical tissue adaptations, there is still great benefit to improving your experience and not worrying about, all of these different things. And I love like empowering information, and I love all of the things that I do to make my life healthy. I love the non-toxic, food and the products that I buy, and the fact that I, filter shower water and filter the water that I drink and avoid certain things and only buy certain things, and you know what I mean? That enriches my life experience, and I like doing it, but I am no longer oppressed by it. I'm no longer freaking out if I go to someone's house and they don't do what I do. I have found a way to have a good experience no matter what. And that, I think, is the most important thing. It also comes in when it comes to like treating stuff or treating symptoms. People are like, oh, well, does GNM say to not do this, or they don't give any treatment? GNM is not a modality. It is not an intervention. It is a recognition of biological truths about how the body functions, how the body responds to certain situations. And so it inherently, when people say, oh, well, I did GNM or they did GNM, you don't do GNM. GNM just is. It just is a recognition of how the body functions. And so what
would that mean probably when a person maybe like would say mistakenly, so-and-so did GNM, or I did GNM. That probably means I read a little bit of GNM, or I learned something from someone. I formed an understanding of what GNM was that may or may not have been accurate or complete. And then I went and did what seemed logical to me on the basis of my understanding of this thing, which may or may not have been accurate, may or may not have been complete. That's usually what someone means to me. It's not like a technique, right, where you say, okay, I'm having my cancer treated with GNM. That's not exactly how it works, right? You know what? I have been diagnosed with cancer, let's say, and I came into contact with someone who teaches something called GNM. They explained to me that there's a relationship between cancer and my personal experience and something called a conflict shock. I work with that person to try to resolve whatever my conflict was, and I got whatever the result was that I got. That's kind of like the thing, right? So, so it's really more of an explanation of the nature of what we call disease. It's not really anything specific about what you do or what you don't do or shouldn't do in response to that. It's kind of just a different understanding of the cause of what we call disease, the nature of disease, whether it's a mistake or whether it's an adaptive, intentional program being run by the body in response to things that you are experiencing and what that experience suggests about your external environment, the reality, the physical world that you're living in. And there are certain things that kind of are derived from that, right? Like, gosh, if the body's intentionally doing this stuff, maybe instead of trying to force the body not to do that, maybe what we can do is send a different communication to the body by modifying your experience, by resolving that trauma, by, whatever, depending on what the specific case is, in a way that will give the body a different communication, a communication that will say, listen, we don't have to continue doing that thing anymore. That's no longer necessary. So it's the difference, I guess, between if there was a crazy person running around who's deranged, right, and they were just destroying things and threatening people. The response that a rational person would give in that situation would be to subdue that person, to detain that person, to basically physically make it impossible for them to do what they're doing. That's kind of what medicine does. That's kind of what actually even natural approaches often do. We're going to give you this plant, we're going to give you this pharmaceutical, pharmaceutical, and it's going to force the body or prevent the body from doing this thing that it's doing, or it's going to force the body to do something different. Whereas with GNM, I think it's like, well, the body is doing what it's doing, but intentionally, because it thinks that what it's doing is going to be of some use to you. And the reason it thinks that is that there's been a miscommunication. And the miscommunication has occurred, or the communication has occurred, through your personal subjective experience. The way that you experienced your environment communicated to the tissues of your body that that environment needed adapting to. And so let's modify our experience. So this would be if there's a person running around smashing things, or, causing problems. If you knew that person was doing what they were doing because they believed something that wasn't true, or because they were under the impression that something was true that wasn't, well, in that case, rather than trying to physically restrain that person, especially if that person's more strong than you are and your body's kind of running the show, what you would try to do is to communicate something to that person. You would try to provide that individual with information that would allow them to stop their behavior or change their behavior. That's kind of what GNM is about, right? It's
Exactly,
about
yeah.
provide the body with information by way of your experience that encourages the body to change what it's doing.
Yeah, and then when it comes to like, oh, well, what do you do? Do you take, someone asked in the group, like, well, do you just take nothing? And that's the thing, is people get confused and they think that knowing GNM means do nothing. And it doesn't mean do nothing. It means do smart things. Do things that make sense biologically based on what is going on, whether it's changing the communication to resolve a conflict itself, or let's say you're in the healing phase, you want to do things to, decrease the intensity of the symptoms sometimes, maybe using, CBD or THC, something to, help the symptoms without reversing them, because that's what a lot of treatments do, is they just reverse the symptoms, which can prevent healing from taking place, and so holistic things, natural remedies, they are very helpful because they make you feel proactive. And that's the thing, it's like, there's a quote that, all of medicine is distracting the patient while the body heals itself. It's like, you want to feel like you did something. You want to feel like you're not, because that's the thing, is we get more scared because you have something going on. You don't understand it, but it's negative, and so you feel like you should be doing something about it. And so a lot of us have this experience where, like, if we don't do something, we feel negligent, and that negligent feeling doesn't feel good. You feel like you're being irresponsible, or that I should be going to the doctor, I should be getting this looked at, and that freaks you out even more and actually causes more problems. And so if you can find things to do, therapies, or, holistic treatments, or even sometimes, if you're so freaked out, if you're so paranoid that you have a bacterial infection, and if it's so ingrained in you, even if you kind of intellectually get GNM, but you're still, like, in the back of your mind, you're still just like, oh, I don't know if this is working, I probably really need the antibiotic, I really don't want this bad thing to happen. You know what? I'm not pro antibiotics, but I would say take it. If it's going, you know what I mean? If you're so convinced that you'll be doing the wrong thing by not doing it, that is more detrimental to you than taking it.
And the person says, "Oh, but what about my gut bacteria?"
Yeah.
Instantly, and that's when you know that that's when you know you're running a program. And it's not your fault. I do it. I think that sometimes you do it. It's just, but that's how you know. Okay, my danger detector, my what if I do it wrong detector is going to fire up no matter whether I bypass medical treatment or go full in on medical treatment. In either case, I'm worried about things going wrong. I've got to do kind of an internal audit on that. I've got to figure out what about me causes me to constantly scan for the things that are going wrong, that creates a sensation of danger or of not okayness, no matter what path, no matter what route that I take, because maybe that sensation of danger or not okayness, maybe that is a part of the whole of what's going on with me and my body right now. And that's such an important thing, to not attempt to take consciousness out of the equation. To recognize that, and this is the thing too, is that people have like a health concern, or they're in a situation. It's like, well, but it's true. I've got something going on here. Okay, I get that. I think acknowledging that is worthwhile. It's not that doesn't matter. It's just that how you choose, consciously or not, to relate to it, to respond to it, that matters a lot too. The experience that you create of doing whatever you do, or of not doing what you choose not to do, that's really important too. Managing that is really important too. We get really hung up on the physical action part. What am I going to do? What path am I going to take? What am I going to commit to? It's very easy to overlook our experience of those things. So if I choose to go the traditional medical route for whatever my situation is, once I've settled on taking that particular course of action, it's very important that I create an experience of that is as positive as possible. That means not second guessing myself. That means not saying, oh God, what if this is going to hurt me? What if this is going to do this? What if this is going to do that? What if I'm wrong? What if, once you've decided to do a certain thing, your next job then is to really kind of curate and manage your experience of that thing. Because that experience is hugely important. That self-concept matters so much. I mean, it's a part of kind of the ecology or the totality of you, and it's so easy to neglect it. It's so easy to overlook it. We think that what we say to ourselves when they're in the waiting room, whether it's the medical, the MD or the naturopath or whatever, it's almost like all the negative things that we say to ourselves in the waiting room don't count or they don't matter, but they do. And when you recognize that, okay, in response to that, what's your inclination? Is your inclination to say something negative about the fact that the negative things that you said in the past matter? Or is it to say, oh, okay, that's something that I can work on, that's something that I can improve? Because that's something I used to do. When someone said to me, man, what you think about this stuff matters as much as what you do, I immediately, because I was so conditioned to just think reflexively, I immediately thought, in response to information about how important my thoughts were, I thought something negative or something that was not resourceful for me in response to finding out how important my thoughts were, just because that was what I was conditioned to do. But when you recognize that awareness is so powerful, and it doesn't matter what you have done, all that matters is what you're doing now. All that matters is what you're doing now. Just pay attention to what you're doing now. Pay attention to optimizing your experience now, your perception now. And don't get freaked out about the fact that it's not better than it is. Don't get freaked out about the fact that you don't feel better than you do, or that you're not more aligned with, or you're not more focused on things that serve you than you are. It's good enough to get better. It's good enough to get better. And when you start really immersing your consciousness in that is one of the best things that you could possibly do for yourself. And I think that it just really primes a person to just respond resourcefully to whatever is going on, to whatever's happening.
Yeah. Cheryl, what you said there, that's not what I said, I don't think, because I'm saying that taking the antibiotic does have negative effects. It does kill your good bacteria, but the detrimental effects of doing it, in the case of a person who believes really deep down, they still believe that they should do it, the detrimental effects of taking it are going to be less than if they don't take it when they really believe that they should. And so, yeah, if you choose to do it, you definitely should take probiotics, eat extra fermented foods and help to rebalance your gut bacteria, because there are consequences to taking antibiotics, but I was just saying that the negative effects of it, it's going to be worse if you really deep down think that you should take it, and you're freaked out and you're kind of like, you're really worried, you're putting on a good holistic face that everything's all good, I'm not taking the antibiotics, but you really deep down think that you should. And that comes to a very interesting point about, like, who do you listen to? Whose voice is like the most real to you? And that's where I think that personal understanding is absolutely paramount to whatever it is that you're choosing to do. Because most people make their decisions based on fear. Most people, like, you listen to who's most confident, who's loudest, who's got the most commercials, who seems to have the most cred of, like, who I should listen to. And obviously it's medicine. And so obviously that's the loudest, voice kind of in the back of your head, because we at this, at this stage, this generation, we've all been raised in it. And, any going against it, unless maybe that's just what your family has done for decades, or if you come from like a chiropractic family where it's like the norm to go against the mainstream medicine, that tends to be the loudest voice in your head. That tends to be, because they seem the most confident, and you have the word quack associated with anybody who does anything different. And so those impressions...
Anybody whose marketing budget isn't...
Yeah, right? Those impressions are very informative. And this is why you'll find, people, will say all sorts of things about, okay, well, this person did alternative and they didn't make it. And this, like, what did they believe about the alternative stuff that they were doing? Who, like, deep down, what was their belief about it? And so that's why it really does matter how much you understand. And that's why I love G&M so much, because when you truly understand for yourself, not because I told you, not because anybody told you, not because your doctor told you, but because you can see. That's the thing about G&M, is it's testable. Like, you can see it happen. Just the other day I had an indigestible morsel conflict because we went out to eat and there was this lettuce I bit into and it was gross. Like, the lettuce was gross. It seemed like, I don't know, like McDonald's lettuce, and I was so grossed out by it. And later on I had a rumbly in my tummy and I was like, oh, I totally had an indigestible morsel conflict over this piece of lettuce, and I saw it happen. I saw myself get caught off guard by eating something that I was, and I was like, oh, gross, I didn't, had a moment where I had a...
You got pretty agitated there for a second.
Yeah, and where I had a conflict, I was pretty upset about it, and then my body responded, because in that moment, my body's like, she needs more digestive juices. She needs to, like, clear out whatever this thing she ate, and so it just does what it does. And so for me, having that, like, being able to see my body go through this so many times with so many different situations, it just is so, I have such confidence in this model, in this understanding. And so it doesn't really matter what somebody else says to me about what they think my symptoms mean or what disease they think that I have. It's like, well, no, I know that you have your opinion, but, like, I know I have a really good understanding of my body and what it's doing. And so when you develop that confidence for yourself, which is really what my mission is for you to investigate this, to learn this, to have your own personal understanding, so that then you can make the best decisions for yourself. Because that's always going to be the best. It's never, doc, what should I do? It's, based on my understanding of what's going on, I feel comfortable. I know what to do. And you might get advice, you might, bounce ideas off of people, but having that kind of deep down confidence is such a powerful thing. And if you don't have that, you are susceptible to the opinions of other people in your family. The most confident, kind of outspoken person in your family, if she happens to be a nurse and, like...
Just happens to be.
Yeah, right? And she's got her opinions, and that, that's... My family, I was a very outspoken one, like telling everybody I'm the most confident about my beliefs, and so you end up with these clashes, and like for the other people who aren't the super passionate ones, who aren't super into one paradigm or the other, they're just kind of like wishy-washy. But then when something comes up, who do they go to? Who do they believe the most? What do they end up doing? That is so influential. What they do is based on who they believe. But I want it to be on what you understand, not on who who's got the most scary consequence for you not doing the thing.
It's really interesting to me to think about, like, say with the probiotics, or let's just say that my relationship to my diet and my exercise and my health measures in general, my exposure to Wi-Fi and all this different stuff. Like, if I pop out of my body for a second in my mind and I actually see myself going around, I watch how I'm thinking about this stuff, and I see myself really as an organism, as a holistic animal entity. Do you know what I mean? And I see the thoughts that I'm thinking, and I see the state that I'm putting myself in. I see how I'm predisposing myself to get really freaked out by certain things if I find out that I ate something or that I've missed something. If I witness all of that, if you were to see into the thought life of a lion, say, and let's say that it was a unique lion and that it had basically a human mind, it was just like a lion, except for the fact that it had a human's capacity to ruminate and perseverate and worry and kind of key its consciousness up to a point of being really confused and freaked out about what it ought to do. Oh my God, was that gazelle that I just ate, was that a grain-fed or was it a grass-fed? You know what I'm saying? What if it had mercury in it because of all the bad... You would recognize in an instant, God, maybe there is stuff out there that's more or less good for that lion, but geez, he seems like he's doing a lot of damage to himself by what he's thinking. It seems like he's really setting himself up. It seems like, and man, you can actually see how the tissues of his body, based on this thing we can look at, this computer or whatever, we can see how his tissues are really responding to that. That for me is like the point, is to remember, like, I'm an organism here, right? And if you look at, how many negative thoughts or how many bad feeling thoughts or how many lack thoughts that I had to think to get myself to take that bottle of probiotics? Well, it was 85,000 times in my mind. I said, oh God, what do you do when you think about, say, needing to repopulate your gut flora? Do you make a vivid picture of a kind of like barren wasteland of like non-functioning large, intestine? How many thoughts like that does it take to get to the point of doing it? Or do you just say, I read that article about gut flora, it sounds like a pretty good thing. I bet it would be a great thing to do. Can't hurt to top them off. This is the best quality one that I could find, the best quality one that's in my budget. I'm going to go for that one right now. Man, that's really great. Oh, life is really wonderful. I wonder what else I can move towards creating, acquiring, and experiencing in my life. Oh, I just had that conversation with Jim there, and I felt kind of funny about that. I think that there may have been a territorial conflict involved there. Gosh, what about my experience? What about my perception set me up to experience that? So that's really, I think, what we're kind of advocating here is it's like, really find a way of thinking about this stuff that enriches your life. In fact, make that a rule. If you're going to think about anything, make it a priority to find a way of thinking about it that doesn't do something negative to your state, to your experience. Because there is a way. There's a way of thinking about it. You don't have to just kind of turn a blind eye to all this stuff. You can have those preferences. You can have those things that you like to do to promote your health and well-being. I think that's a wonderful thing that we as organisms have the consciousness to one, be self-conscious, to know that we exist in a kind of a conscious way, but then also to be able to think and talk about our health and our longevity and say, it feels good to do things that are life-enriching or life-prolonging. I think it's a wonderful gesture to yourself to say, why are you doing that? Well, I'm doing that because I care about my body. I care about my life. My body does a lot of nice things for me. I'm going to do a little something nice for it. It's a thought that counts. You know the thing, if I give my aunt or my grandmother a present and she doesn't really like it, a stupid coaster or something like that from the city that I visit, they don't care. It's the thought that counts. It's the thought that counts, right? With a lot of the stuff that we do for our body. I'm taking this little supplement or whatever. It's like the thing is, I feel so good about taking this thing. What if maybe the feeling good about anything, but especially about this, what if that impacts me more positively than the actual ingredients in whatever the thing is that I'm taking? I don't have a problem with that. I'm not upset about that because I'm with the end result. And the end result, if I look at an ecological kind of the organismic level, the whole of me, the end result is my health and well-being. And if I get that health benefit by, and then people will say, so couldn't I just do that without taking that stuff? Well, I don't know. Can you? I mean, you know what I'm saying? How good do you have to get before you really experience it as being true that you can pretty much just sit down and envision yourself being very healthy and feel the feeling of being healthy and then trust that feeling, that self-concept to manifest in the right combination of behaviors moving forward, making the right choices about what to eat, what not to eat, what supplement to take, what supplement not to take. I think that's that thing is like getting really in rapport with your own experience of yourself and with your own self-concept and learning to kind of like ratchet down the self-doubt and ratchet down the worry. Because ultimately, I think that that's what a lot of this stuff boils down to. I think that people who are maybe appear to be kind of neurotic about their health or about oh my God, it's the Wi-Fi. Oh my God, it's the Bluetooth. Oh my God, it's the sugar. It's the this. It's the gut flora. It's the fluoride. It's the very often, and there are exceptions to this, but very often that concern about doing something wrong is not confined to health and wellness and well-being. Very often they feel like they're doing things wrong in every area of their life because when they were growing up, every time they took some initiative and did something, they were rebuked for doing it incorrectly, or they were rebuked for doing the wrong thing, or you know what I mean? And so I think recognizing that pattern and recognizing that tendency to feel like you're not good enough, you're not doing enough, you're not going to make the grade, you're going to suffer some negative consequence because you haven't prepared adequately, whatever that is, if that's a pattern for you, becoming aware of that will really allow you to kind of take conscious control of your life. And it will allow you to come to the health and wellness table, and to the nutrition table, and to the, managing, I don't know, what's it called, like, Wi-Fi, all that, the hygiene table, and come to it from a place of empowerment, from a place of sufficiency, and from a place of like, I'm okay, you're okay, and then you can start having a good time deciding what you're going to do in your life. And the experience of empowerment and well-being that comes with that is tremendously helpful too, and perhaps more important than any one single decision that you make about what food to eat or not eat, or what health intervention to take or to not take or whatever.
Absolutely. And so if you guys like this way of thinking, if you'd like kind of like to develop that awareness of yourself, of these patterns, you're like, oh, it's not just this, that's a pattern I have in all these different areas of my life. That's really what the Resolve program is all about, is every single month we're going to be dissecting these things and helping you to kind of figure out what your experience is made out of. How am I creating this experience for myself? How am I creating this conflict again and again and again? And showing you kind of our method, our thought process of how to get to the root cause of things. Because there is a way. There is a way. I mean, if you like this kind of chill, relaxed attitude to health, to wellness, to understanding your body, understanding why you do what you do. Our dog is going crazy over here. It's really funny. He's sneezing. Like, he's got an itchy back. If you like that approach, if you're like, gosh, I think I would like to experience food, my health, my body in this new and different way, check out the new Resolve program, because every single month we'll be putting new material in there for you to do just that, to break down in very specific ways. We've got exercises, journaling, to help you to kind of come to this level of awareness about yourself and your body. And so yeah, I think you'll really like it.
The Resolve course really is fantastic. I'm sorry, but our dog is over here just writhing around the ground, sneezing all over the place. And so I know you probably can't even hear it, or maybe you can hear it. Oh my gosh, hey, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? You're so funny.
What are you doing, buddy?
The Resolve course is fantastic. It really is. It's not even really a course, is it? It's like a monthly membership community thing.
Yeah.
And the first one was phenomenal. I don't know how many hours probably we spent compiling that information for you. It is such a high yield use of all of that attention about, I don't know what to do. Well, listen, channel that attention in the direction of this stuff. Channel this attention into realizing what your perception, what your experience is made out of. Because that's one of those big things. It's like a lot of people, they don't want to feel this way anymore. A lot of the time, what we're unhappy with or dissatisfied with, the real, like, you know, we want to have more money. We want our bodies to feel better. We want these changes in our external reality. But very often, the thing that we're really not happy about and really fed up with is our experience of the things that are true to us and for us right now. You know what I mean? It's not so much our weight, it's our experience of what our weight is right now, and it's our inability to create an experience of the body that we're in right now that allows us, one, to feel better right here and right now, independent of changes in our body composition. And then the other thing is to feel a way right now that allows us to be empowered enough to feel good enough to do the things that we need to do to create the kind of results that we want in our life. And I mean, I think that's the really powerful thing about this, is it very often the relationships. It's not so much that there's any one thing in the relationship. My main complaint is my experience of being in this relationship. And the interesting thing is that when you learn the techniques and the skills, but really just to realize how your experience is really coming from you, and you start to expand your ability to make conscious choices that enrich what the quality of your experience is. This has nothing to do with excusing other people or becoming a doormat or anything like that. It's just about, like, look, there's something that it's like to be you, and there are ways that that experience can be enriched and improved. And that's really what this is all about. I mean, there's a health emphasis to it because of just the German New Medicine connection, but really it's about empowerment with your health, and it's that, what do I think about? What, you know, where does my mind go? Instead of going towards all these things that I'm worried about, what can I be thinking about instead? And when you realize how many things there are that you can be doing to enrich your experience and to really empower yourself, you always have something better to think about. And in all my work with people, whether it's health related or whether it's in the more personal growth, the self-concept world, the key thing for every human being, in order for you to really start creating the stuff that you want, it's not a secret pill, and it's not a secret program, and and this is what all of our course is about. It's what the Resolve method is about in the community. It's about giving you something better to think about. And when you have access to something better to think about, your mind just goes, you know, when we point your brain in the right direction and shoot it off going that way, it gathers this momentum that really is unstoppable. And I think that's what all this stuff is about. And it's really fun. Yeah,
it really is. Lisa, that is great. When you go through and you start looking at your own patterns, that's just so powerful. Just looking at how do I create this experience? How do I keep doing this experience? Because I'm having an experience, and I am at this point now where I know it's coming from me, and gosh, I need to look at that. And so that's the thing, is you are part of, like, a very small percentage of people that ever look at these things. And so most people, they're just, you know, they have no idea where their life experience comes from. And when you start to kind of get that, when you start to learn, when you come across, I mean, that's why I love teaching this stuff, because I have no idea. You guys, I told you about how neurotic I was, and I didn't know that I was creating that experience for myself. I thought that there were just objective things, and this is the way that, you know, you have to respond to bad, terrible things in life. I didn't know that I had flexibility in my perception, and if I looked at things and thought about things in a different way, I'd have an actual, literal, different physical experience of them. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that I had that power. And so many people, I posted something in one of the cancer natural healing groups the other day, and this person really scoffed at the idea. They were like, you really think that your emotions affect, I can't remember exactly what or maybe, I don't know if it was acid reflux. Oh, minerals, yeah, I think, it was someone a very young person who had osteoporosis, and I was letting them know that, osteoporosis, from the German New Medicine perspective, is an ongoing self-devaluation conflict, and boosting your self-confidence and your self-esteem can really, really help with that. And this person, they just scoffed at the notion that your emotions could demineralize bone. Yeah, right. And I was
just scoffing at the notion that feelings could affect the body in which those feelings are felt. It's kind of an interesting thing. Is it kind of funny? Like what a wacky kind of like out there new age bunch of kooks we are. That the feelings that occur inside of your physical body could have some kind of an influence on what that physical body is doing, or elicit some kind of a response from that physical body. That it's not very far fetched, but we're so prone to thinking that there's this hard line of distinction between subjective experience, how I feel, my emotions, and objective reality. We are so deranged in this kind of, is that Descartes' error, this notion that there's the mind and there's the body, there's the spirit and there's the body, and the spirit or the mind is in a Ziploc baggie up in the head, and the blood-brain barrier keeps it separate, and the brain is part of the body. It gets kind of confusing there. But there's not a distinction. I mean, if you're having feelings out of your body, if your feelings are over there across the room in the corner, maybe they're not influencing your body, but if they're in your body, of course. Why would you be having those feelings if your body wasn't responding to them? Your body hasn't... the human organism did not develop the ability to feel things for no reason. We didn't develop the ability to feel for nothing. There's a biological significance to that. And even if, I happen to think that consciousness is kind of an interesting and separate discussion, but there is a biological significance to your feelings. Like the fact that we can feel devalued or inadequate, there is a biological significance to our ability to feel that way. The fact that we can feel angry or that we've had our territory invaded, that stuff matters. And it matters because it's a communication to our body, letting our body know what it needs to do in order to make the adaptations that it's capable of making that will and to maximize the chances of our surviving. And I think when you recognize that, it starts to make a lot more sense. And you start to kind of recognize, oh, okay, I have this amazing nervous system, and I have this incredible consciousness, and it's capable of creating a huge range of different experiences. And certain of those experiences I like better than others. Certain of those experiences elicit from my body responses that are nicer than other ones. There's a lot of things that I can do to create felt shifts in my experience. There's a lot of things that I can do over time, not to put up with other people, but to literally change the way that I see them, what I see, how I see it, and how I experience things that are going on in my life. I can literally create fundamental, lasting, permanent shifts in my perception and my experience of myself, of my world, of other people. And that can have really amazing, astounding health consequences for me, because it just kind of gets everybody facing one direction. Gets the mind, gets the body all lined up, and there's this cooperation there. There's this kind of relief of stress. There's this lack or this end of a sensation that your body is your enemy. You know what I mean? And you start to really attend to your... And I think the more you do this thing, the better it gets, because the more you start paying attention to your experience, the better you feel, the more your body starts to change in the way that you want it to, the more reality in general starts to change in the way that you want it to. The more that starts to change, it gets a lot easier to do things that are resourceful, and also you kind of discover a little bit about your power and about how powerful you are. And when you start making those changes from within and allow them just to kind of gradually make their way out, it works a whole lot better. It's a lot easier to plant a seed, the seed of change, let's say, and let it sprout up and grow into an enormous tree, than it is to take a huge redwood tree and kind of plop it down somewhere. You know what I mean? It's better to start inside and start small changes in thoughts and feelings and perception and meaning and belief and all this different stuff, and allow that to kind of gain this momentum and allow it to manifest in your health and your relationships and all that.
Is it Descartes? I thought it was Descartes.
What did I say?
I think you said Descartes.
Oh,
I think you pronounced the N's. S. Is that correct?
I think, what you said is correct. Descartes, yeah. Sorry.
I was just wondering.
Thanks so much.
I know, just stuck in my head. I had to say.
Had you not said that, I'm sure that probably would have gone unnoticed.
Sorry, guys. I was being neurotic. Cheryl says, I think people don't want to be responsible for it. They want to blame it on something outside of themselves. And that's such an interesting...
Descartes, of course. You're exactly right. Yeah. That's one of those ones that I think that maybe you read so much.
You read it in your... and you see that.
And you're just like, oh yeah, whatever, who is that guy? But yeah, no, you're totally correct. And I'm aware of... but I'm aware of Descartes, right? But for some reason, I couldn't move from the visual in the spelling to that pronunciation. That's interesting.
Yeah, it just kind of slipped out there.
Excuse me while I build that bridge.
Yes, Cheryl. People, and that's the interesting thing is people, they don't want to, because they're so used to thinking in blame. And that's a big thing too that I really like to make clear when I'm just describing GNM to people is like, you're not to blame. And people will hear that as like, oh, my cancer came from my emotions. I'm to blame for my cancer. My cancer is bad.
You're saying that I'm to blame.
Yeah, you're saying that I'm to blame. That's terrible. No, it's my genes. No, it's this. No, it's this thing that happened to me. I didn't do that. And they get very defensive because they think in terms of blame. In our world, we never think in terms of blame. We think in terms of responsibility, and not responsibility like you should be responsible, like who is able to respond. And so that's the thing is it's not blame, shame, something you should feel guilty about, something that I'm saying, you're responsible, you should feel bad. I'm saying, oh my gosh, this is great. I just want you to know that this is coming from you. This adaptation of your body is coming from an experience that you're having. And so when you can shift your mind, change your perspective, change the way you think about this, you can change the response of your body. You can heal yourself. Everything can change. And so you are responsible. It is coming from you. That means you can do something about it. And that to me is the most empowering message and the least disempowering message that exists, to know that something is coming from you and that you can control it. And the thing is a lot of people think it can't be that easy. I've gotten this a couple times in the last few weeks. Is like, can it really be just that easy? Because we think, oh, well, I just have to change my thoughts and change my emotions. Can it really just be that easy and that be the thing that helps this lifelong chronic pain condition that I've had go away just by changing the way that I think? And they scoff at that too. But the thing is it's not necessarily, it's simple, but it's not necessarily easy, because our brains get good at what they do. And if you're really good at devaluing yourself or really good at being, angry at someone, your brain's really good at doing that. And so rewiring does take some time, but it really is that simple. When you look at the biology of it and you understand GNM, it is that redirection of not safe, fight or flight, safe, chill, good, all is well, my body can heal. That it really is that simple. 2 buttons. There's 2 main functions of the nervous system, the fight or flight, and then the rest and digest. And that's really, I like to make it as simple as possible. And that's really another thing that I brought to the resolve method is that simplicity, is it really is simple. And simple is good because you can always come back to simple. You can always come back to yourself in a moment and say, what message am I sending to my body right here, right now? Safe, not safe. It's that simple. Not always that easy, because the monkey mind or ego likes to think about all sorts of crazy stuff, but it really can be. And that's what we want to teach you. That's the tools that we want to equip you with, so you always have access to it, so that you can always get to that place no matter what.
Very good.
Very good. Well, we love
Heather's in the vortex.
Oh, 5, 5, 5, and 5. That's great. We love you guys. We think you're awesome. Check out the Resolve method and the Resolve community. It's awesome. We want to have you in there, and we'll see you again very soon for another video. Bye-bye.